Hello, newly admitted MAPM students. My name is Dr. Stuart Squires. I'm sure at this point you and I have had a conversation either on Zoom or on the phone. I am the director of the MAPM program, the online Masters of Arts in Pastoral Ministry program here at St. John's Seminary. This is a short video that I want to make. It's in a series of videos that we make for newly admitted students on how to use a variety of different resources here at St. John's. So there'll be other videos that you'll be receiving, how to register and pay for your courses, how to use the online library systems. Our registrar is doing an orientation video. So a variety of different videos on how to navigate this new world that you're in at St. John's. This video is a video on how to use Canvas. Canvas is one of many different products. There's other products like Blackboard, for example, and these all fall under the category of a LMS, which stands for Learning Management System. If you've been in college in the past, let's say 10 to 15 years, you probably used a Canvas or something similar to it, a learning management system. And you might very well be better at these systems than I am. If you've been out of college for a while and you're coming back to this, this might be a little bit new for you. A learning management system, I like to think of it as sort of a one-stop shopping where you can go to get pretty much everything that you need for your course. Now, every different Canvas course is going to be organized a bit differently depending on the professor. But generally what will be contained in Canvas are things like any links that your professor wants you to see, say, for example, a video from YouTube, any quizzes, any online quizzes your professor wants you to take, any PDF documents or Microsoft Word documents, maybe a photocopy of a text that your professor wants you to download and read. Any chat postings, for example, your professor might ask you a question, and then you have to write 500 words within the course of a week in response to that question. And then you can see the responses that your fellow colleagues have to the same question. And your professor might have you interact with those questions as well. You can see your grades. So you could do all kinds of things. So usually if you have a question or if there's something that you need for your course, your professor would probably have it already on Canvas. So before emailing a professor, and who knows how long, your professor should get back to you within 24 business hours. But always the best place to go is to look at Canvas. And specifically, probably the most important thing that Canvas has is it contains your syllabus for the semester. And the syllabus, of course, has all the instructions on what it is that you're supposed to do for the semester. So it'll have the schedule for when you read each week, what book do you read, how many pages or how many chapters do you read. It'll tell you instructions. It'll have things on it like the plagiarism policy. It'll tell you exactly what books to buy. It'll have you the course description of what is this course all about. So this is sort of your number one place to go for each course. So what I'm going to do now is on the screen here is I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you, this is kind of a dummy course. This is a course that I've created. It's a dogmatic theology course. And, you may or may not be enrolled in this particular class, probably not, but it's a sample course, and I'm going to walk you through the different ways, the different tabs. And again, your professor might have a different color scheme or might have it organized a bit differently. So don't get too attached to exactly the format or the layout that I have here in this particular sample. This is just a sample, but every professor is going to have a variation on this theme. So the first thing to do is when you get your credentials from the registrar on how to log in, that you go ahead and log in and just start playing around with it and see how it works. It's these learning management systems, Canvas in particular, is very user-friendly. So the first thing to do, of course, is you log in like anything else. And the orientation packet that you get from the registrar will contain your specific login information for things like your Microsoft Outlook email. Of course, you get an email address like you would expect, and your course login information for Canvas. So you go to the website, that's https://stjohnsem.instructure.com. You go there, you log in, and now let me pull up the share screen and we can walk through this together. All right, good. So now what I've pulled up here is this dummy class, a dogmatic theology class. And I put this, as you should be able to see down here in the left corner, it says you are currently logged in as student view, right? So I'm the professor, so I have certain functions that I can get into Canvas and change things around. You are the student, so I've changed this to student view. So this is going to be what it looks like from your perspective. And again, this is going to look a little bit differently from professor to professor. So don't get too attached to exactly the visuals, the aesthetics here, okay? So the first thing to do is if you look here to the left, you can see these are sort of the main tabs. And we're going to walk through each one of these tabs. And so the first one is home. Your professor can set up what is the home tab. So the home tab could be the syllabus tab, or it could be the quizzes tab. That's up to your professor. I've set this up, the home tab, as the modules tab. So you can see when I click on modules and I click on home, it's pretty much the same thing. Now, what is a module? A module is, think of it like when you have a 15-week semester course, maybe another way of talking about it is a unit. So for example, a unit on Christology. That unit might last 1 week, or it might last 2 or 3 weeks, depending on your professor. And so a module is all of the things that your professor wants you to do for that particular unit. So let's say for a Christology unit, I have a video I want you to watch from YouTube, a PDF I want you to read, a quiz I want you to take, and a chat posting I want you to write in response to a question that I have. All of those things are designated for that particular module, and your professor can name the module however he or she wants. So it might be week 1, week 2, week 3, or it might be the content, Christology, theology, soteriology. It's up to your professor, okay? So here we are at home, and this is probably the first place that you should go when you log in, because if your professor, as I said, can designate any of these tabs as home. So what that means is whatever tab your professor has designated as home, he or she considers to be the most important tab. So I have designated the modules tab. So the very first tab that you see here that I've done is I call it Why Study Theology. And then there's 3 different links that I have on here. The first link is a link to a video, and it's simply called Meet Your Professor. So this is something that I've done. Maybe your other professors will do this, maybe not, is I want you to know a little bit about me. Not an easy, just sort of the basics of who I am, where I studied, those types of things. So if you click on that, it'll take you to a link, and it's about 5 minutes, and it'll tell you about who I am. And then, of course, what I like to do in my classes, and I think most professors do on the first day, ask you when we're on Zoom together, ask you, who are you? Tell us about yourself, so that all of us in the class can get to know each other. The second link that you can see here that I have is training on how to use Zoom. This is actually another video that I've made. I think most people at this point know how to use Zoom, but I don't want to assume that. So if you know how to use the basics of Zoom, don't worry about watching that video. But if maybe your company that you work for uses something else like Microsoft Teams, and maybe you never used Zoom before, so you'd want to watch that video. And then here, the third one is link for Zoom discussion. So every week, your professors and your fellow classmates get together in the evenings for a couple of hours, and do whatever it is that you do. You have a discussion, your professor lectures, whatever it is. And so for me, what I do is I have one Zoom link, and that one Zoom link lasts the entire semester. Maybe your professor will use a different one each week, but I like using one, okay? So that's kind of just the basic links for the entire semester. Then as we go down, you can see that for this particular course, our first module, our first unit is a unit on the Trinity, right? Makes sense in a dogmatic theology course, right? So here, for example, I have simply two things under this. Number one is the Trinity Chat posting. And I've already told you that a chat posting is a question that your professor asks, and then you have to write maybe 250 words or 500 words in response to that. And then underneath that is the exact same Zoom link for discussion. So you don't always have to scroll back up here to find it at the top. Each of these units or modules have the Zoom link. So for my particular course, the Trinity lasts one week, okay? So then the next week is the Christology unit, and you see the exact same thing here. And then scrolling down is the theological anthropology, and you see the same thing here, a chat posting, Zoom link for discussion. Then we read Augustine's Confessions. We have a unit on the Eucharist, early modernity, the Reformation, early modernity, the Catholic response. So you can see here that all of these are different units. And then when you get to the very bottom one here, you'll see something a little bit different. There's the chat posting, and then you can see I have a final exam, right? So if you click on that, it'll take you to the instructions, and your professors can have different instructions. They can limit the time. Let's say you have to take it within 2 hours. They can give you multiple questions, and then questions can be essays or matching or however your professor wants to do it. So your professor should tell you before the exam what he or she is expecting on that, okay? So this is pretty basic. As you can see here, each unit for this particular course, I just have a couple of links. But again, your professor might have something else added here, like a video to watch from Bishop Robert Barron, for example, okay? Now, these are just sort of the links that you need. The obvious question, of course, is, well, what do you have to read for each one of these units? And your professor might include that here under each of the modules. But he or she should definitely have it. If you go up here to the second tab, click on this one. This is probably the second most important tab. This is the course syllabus tab. And your professor should have all of the basic information that you would need in the course syllabus. So you click on that and you can see here just the basic information. What's the course name and number? When are we having it? When is it meeting? Mondays, 7 to 9 p.m. Here's the Zoom meeting link. So there's, once again, a way you can find the Zoom information. Here's my name. Here's my contact information. Here's office hours. Program learning outcomes. This is sort of basic boilerplate for all of the program. This is not the MAPM program. This is not just for this particular course. Course description and overview, okay? Required texts and materials. Here are the texts that you would read for that particular course. That includes the ISBN numbers. We're required by law to include that for each text. And that's important because there might be different editions or different translations of a particular text, and you don't want to buy the wrong translation or the wrong edition. So make sure that if you go to Amazon.com, for example, you're getting the right ISBN number text. I'm not going to go through everything here on the syllabus. Each professor is going to have a syllabus that's a bit different, although some of these things will all be the same. So for example, policies and expectations. Policies and expectations are institution-wide. So the plagiarism policy is the same plagiarism policy for every single course, every single professor. We all have the same. And you can find those things. First of all, it should be on the syllabus, but also you can see the academic catalog and the student handbook. And you should also receive that information from the registrar when you get the orientation packet. Okay, so again, every professor is going to have a little bit different information on their syllabus, but some of this is going to be the same. And then here you can see the schedule for the semester. So I have this listed under the syllabus. So for example, week 2, right? Week 2, this would be module 2, because each of these first couple of units is just 1 week. So the Trinity. And what do I have you read here? Read Augustine's The Trinity, books 1 and 2, right? And so that's what you have to read for this particular course. You have a week to do it. And then what we'll do in my course, this is how I do it. Every professor is going to be a little bit different. So you read it, and then you do this chat posting due by the beginning of the class. And then you come, as it says here, on Monday, August 28th to the Zoom session. So you click on that Zoom link. And then we talk about it. Maybe I'll give some contextual information. Who is Augustine? What is this book, The Trinity? And then we have a dialogue, a discussion about what's Augustine saying about the Trinity, okay? In my classes, we're going to be, when we get together on Zoom, it's going to be more discussion-based than maybe some of your other professors might be a little bit more lecture-based, okay? So that's going to vary from professor to professor. So here is the schedule. Again, your professor might be able to do it a bit differently. Under the home page and the modules page might also include what the schedule is. So you just have to feel out how is your professor doing it. But every professor will have a schedule, and it'll tell you what you have to read for what week, what pages or what chapters, okay? And then you can see here, paper due December 2nd, 5 p.m. Pacific time, and then a take-home final exam, okay? Maybe your professor will have an exam, maybe not. Maybe your professor will have a professor, maybe not. Maybe it'll be an oral exam. Maybe it'll be a presentation. And even personally, I will change from course to course what the requirements are based on the type of course that it is. So some courses might have an exam, others might have a paper. I'm just going to vary it up, right? I think pedagogically, it's important to have a variety of different ways of teaching, okay? So the two most important things probably for you to get to know, that home button and the syllabus button. And I personally, on the first day of class, will go through the syllabus with the students, spend maybe an hour doing that. I don't know if your other professors do, but it's certainly important in my mind that all the students have a clear understanding of what it is that we're doing in this course, what's expected, what are the due dates, all of those types of things, okay? And I would say, but again, log in as soon as you can to Canvas, play around with it, see what the options are, get the syllabus from your professor, have that first week of class on Zoom with your professor. And then if by the end of that class, you're still not clear, excuse me, what exactly you're expected to do for that course, then I would say reach out to your professor, email him or her, and ask your professor, you know, I'm sorry, I'm a little unclear on you know, X, Y, and Z, okay? All right, let's go to the next tab. So we've gone home, we've done syllabus, now announcements. I don't have anything on my announcements other than, once again, the exact same link, our Zoom link for class each week, right? So I'm giving my students a variety of different ways they can find that link, because of course, if I only put it one place, let's say just the announcement section, that can be confusing. So I've got it in the syllabus, I've got it on the home tab, I've got it in the announcement section. So it's very easy to find what's the Zoom link for our class. Your professor might add new announcements every week or not. Again, every professor is going to be doing it a little bit differently. Personally, I'm the type of person who wants to set up everything at the beginning of the class, and I don't like changing things throughout the semester. If I tell you on day one something is due on this date, I almost always stick to that. So I personally am not going to really use the announcements section very often. In fact, if I need to do something like that, I'm probably just going to email the students. Okay. Files. Here's so here is the sort of place where you can the professor can upload a different file. So I only have one here. This is the syllabus. So here's yet another way that a student can find the syllabus in addition to the syllabus module. But there's other things that your professor might have. Let's say your professor has a journal article that he or she wants you to read, that they can upload it here, and then you can download it, print it up, and read it. If that's the case, what probably also is your professor will have it on the modules tab under, let's say, the unit on Christology. So there are different ways of finding these things, okay? So if in the syllabus it says, or on the module for a particular week, read the article that says Why Study Theology by John Cavadini, published, I think it was in Commonweal, I could have that here, and you just have to click on it and download it, okay? So files, Word documents, PDFs, Microsoft Excel documents, any documents that your professor might want you to read, you can find it in the files section. Discussions. Okay, this is what I had mentioned earlier. Here it's called discussions. I called it chat postings. Your professor might call it something a little bit different. These have different names to them. But this is, again, what I had said earlier. Maybe your professor might assign you to do, here's a question, and then you have to respond in, say, 500 words. So each week, we'll just look at this first one, the Trinity Chat posting. Let's just click on that one. I don't even remember what I said. Please write 500 words in response to the following question and respond with at least 250 words to at least one other post from another student. And then the question is, why do you think it is so difficult for Christianity to talk about the Trinity? Okay, so getting right into the theological, the meat of the question, right? God is one person, God is one and Trinitarian, right? What does that mean, and why is it difficult? And of course, a lot of other non-Christian groups reject this idea. Think of our Jewish brothers and sisters, our Muslim brothers and sisters. They believe in one God, but they don't believe that the God is Trinitarian. They reject that idea, okay? So then you respond to that particular question, and I give you a week to think about it and to write in response, okay? So that's the discussions. Your professor may or may not have that as part of the requirement. So again, the syllabus will tell you what exactly the requirements are. The next tab is assignments. You'll see here that the assignments tab has pretty much everything that we just saw in the discussions tab, because the discussions tab are graded assignments. So this tab, the assignments tab, for this class would have, as you can see, all of those chat postings. So you can find those either in the discussions or the assignments. But then look down here at the bottom again, and you can see that final exam, right? So the assignments tab should have everything that your professor requires you to do that gives you points, that gets you that works towards your grade. So for this class, again, it's the chat postings and this final exam. Your professors will have a little bit different. People, I don't know if you'd even really need that. You can see here, there's my name, and then this is one of my colleagues. He's a professor of philosophy here. This might have your fellow students, and you can sort of reach out to them if you want to, although I don't really know. Other than me, obviously, the professor, right? Click on that, and it'll have your professor's contact information, which should also be on the syllabus and the home section. So your professor should give you a variety of different ways how to reach out to him or her. Quizzes. In this particular class, I don't have quizzes, but your professor might do that. So he or she might have a 10-point quiz for every writing assignment, or a 10-point quiz if he or she has you do a video lecture and wants to, is sort of testing you to make sure that you watched the video, right? Could be done a variety of different ways. You can see here the only thing listed is final exam, which technically isn't a quiz, it's an exam, but it's the same type of thing. Again, your exam or quizzes could be essays or matching or multiple choice. So it could be a variety of different things. So for this particular course, you just have that final exam. Grades, of course, students are always concerned about grades, although I always encourage my students be motivated by your interests in this course and doing well, right? Excellence should be your motivator, not grades. But I understand the reality. So we have to give grades whether we like it or not. So here you can see all those chat postings again. And then you can see the score for this particular chat posting is 10 points. And then I haven't done it yet. But if you, the student, were to do the chat posting, the professor goes in and grades it by hand and then gives you the particular score, right? So if you want to know how many points that you have, you come to the grade section. Here you can see the final exam is not worth 10 points, but it's worth 100 points. So when your professor grades your final exam, that is where you can find the score, although your professor should be giving you the exam back with comments as well. That's what I always like to do. Personally, I don't think grades mean much. I think in my mind, what should mean more are the comments, the feedback that your professor gives you, whether it's a paper or a final exam, because it should be about improvement for the next step, right? The next time you have to write a 20-page paper, for example, or a 10-page paper, a 5-page paper, whatever it is, you want to do it better the next time. So you should be getting feedback from your professor on what is sort of the struggles that you had with this particular paper so that you can do it better the next time. And then finally here at the bottom, the last tab is modules, which I already told you. I made the modules tab the home tab. So the home tab and the modules tab are the exact same thing. Your professor, again, might make the home tab the syllabus tab. It's up to him or her. So there's nothing really to say about the modules tab that I didn't already say, so we can skip this. But what you should do when you first log in is click on the home tab and find out which of these tabs did your professor designate as the home tab. Was it like I did it, the modules tab, or maybe it was the syllabus tab, or maybe it was something else? That's up to your professor. So I hope you can see that this is fairly user-friendly, right? One of the things about Canvas, the reasons that we chose Canvas as opposed to one of the other options out there, is that this is pretty user-friendly. And if your professor has put the time and effort into uploading the syllabus and doing all the things that need to be done, this should be pretty self-explanatory. If there's anything that you don't quite understand about Canvas, I would say, by the end of that first week, after you've played around in Canvas to see what your professor has done specifically, after the first Zoom meeting and your professor has told you about the syllabus, what the requirements are, after that first week, if you're still a little confused about Canvas, email your professor to ask questions, because as I said at the very beginning, Canvas is the one-stop shopping. It's the place to go. So this is essential to succeed well in your St. John's experience. Again, for those of you who went to college recently, this is known to you. You're very well familiar with some sort of LMS. If you've been out of college for a while, maybe you've never done this before. Certainly when I was in college, way back in the 20th century, we didn't have this. But this is helpful, I think. And it might take a little bit of time getting used to, but it's like anything else. Once you sort of have one semester of this, I think the rest of your time here at St. John's, it should be pretty easy because there's not too many different ways your professor can set up Canvas. I hope that was helpful. One of the things about having a video is if something was a little unclear, you can always back up and watch the section again. Certainly feel free to email your professor about his or her specifics for their class. And then, of course, I, as the director of the program, if you always have any questions, please feel free to email me. I hope this was helpful to you, and I hope you have a successful semester and time here at St. John's.